Unfortunately for Star Wars fans and gamers, Disney has chosen the notorious EA as the company of choice to exclusively publish Star Wars video games. This has paved the way to the bare-bones launch of Star Wars Battlefront, the controversial launch of Star Wars Battlefront 2, and the cancellation and reboot of Visceral's single-player story-driven action-adventure Star Wars game, as well as the studio shutdown. That last one in particular is relevant to today's news update, which involves a brand new Star Wars game that EA is cooking up behind the scenes. The following information comes from a job listing posted by EA for a position called Star Wars Lead Online Engineer. The first line of the job description reads, quote, lead a team to deliver online features for a Star Wars open world project. The description then proceeds with, quote, you will design, architect, and implement the online infrastructure for the project while working with industry-leading central technologies. You will lead a team of engineers to accomplish the goals for the product, as well as be an effective people manager to grow the talent on the team. You will report to the project technical director and ensure that the online systems are meeting the robustness and performance requirements. Yeah, suffice to say that whatever this upcoming open-world Star Wars project is, will surely have a prominent online presence. I don't expect this to be an MMO per se, as we already have a Star Wars MMO in the form of Star Wars The Old Republic, but I do expect this to be a shared world type of experience, akin to Destiny and the upcoming Anthem. As for what exactly this project entails, interesting to note is that this job is for a position in Canada, or more specifically, Burnaby, Vancouver. If Vancouver sounds familiar to you, that's because it ties into what happened to Visceral Games and the linear single-player Star Wars game that they had been working on before the studio was sent to the chopping block. You may recall that in EA's statement on Visceral's shutdown and their Star Wars games reboot, they said, quote, a development team from across EA worldwide studios will take over development of this game, led by a team from EA Vancouver that has already been working on the project. Our Visceral studio will be ramping down and closing, and we're in the midst of shifting as many of the team as possible to other projects and teams at EA. So yeah, there is little doubt that EA is hiring a lead online engineer to repurpose Visceral Star Wars game from a single-player experience into one of those live services that they're so infatuated by. It even says in the job listing that one of the requirements from the applicant is, quote, experience implementing online features such as matchmaking, asynchronous interactions, live services, server host migration, etc. This shift from linear story-driven single-player game to live service was also something that was heavily implied in EA's press release on Visceral's closure, which said, quote, our Visceral studio has been developing an action-adventure title set in the Star Wars universe. In its current form, it was shaping up to be a story-focused, linear adventure game. Throughout the development process, we have been testing the game concept with players, listening to the feedback about what and how they want to play, and closely tracking fundamental shifts in the marketplace. It has become clear that to deliver an experience that players want to come back to and enjoy for a long time to come, we needed to pivot the design. That's basically their long-winded way of saying we want to make this game more monetizable by shifting its design to be more online multiplayer focused. I should also note that EA CFO Blake Jorgensen flat out admitted this back in November 2017, stating, quote, as we kept reviewing the game, it continued to look like a style of gaming, a much more linear game that people don't like as much today as they did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It was an economic decision at the end of the day. You gotta cut the bridge when you realize you can't make a lot of money on something. So for those who have been wondering about what's happened to Visceral's project, we are already beginning to see glimpses of what form it will take. Now, it's obviously too early to judge the quality of the game or how EA will handle live service functionalities in this game, as we know next to nothing about it. Here's the thing about live services, they don't necessarily have to be a bad thing. The idea of a game that constantly evolves over time with new story and gameplay content is actually quite compelling. Just look at games like Splatoon 2, which continuously adds new weapons, stages, and events every so often for free, or Monster Hunter World, which continuously updates with new monsters, quests, and gear with no monetary caveat attached. Live services can be a force for good when properly executed, but when it comes to EA and similar publishers, the term has become more synonymous with systems that intend to recurrently and insidiously nickel and dime players. Now, they did recently make significant adjustments to Battlefront 2 in response to backlash though, overhauling the game so that progression is linear, so that loot boxes only reward cosmetics and in-game currency and can no longer be purchased, and so that microtransactions are tied to cosmetic-only purchases that can also be bought with in-game currency earned via gameplay with no element of chance involved. The jury's still out on whether EA has learned its lesson and whether they'll strive to take cues from Battlefront 2's revision moving forward. We still don't know if this is a one-time thing that they did to mitigate Battlefront 2's backlash, or if this is a full commitment from the company to change their ways. Only time will tell. Don't misunderstand, I despise microtransactions of any kind in my $60 games, regardless of whether they're chance-based or upfront, and whether they're cosmetics only or pay to win, though some practices are obviously worse than others. But we unfortunately live in a time where a game labeled as live service is all but guaranteed to have some form of microtransactions. So within the confines of what's realistically possible, I think Battlefront 2's revamp was the best possible compromise we could have gotten. And I hope that the upcoming online open world Star Wars game tries to stay within those confines at least. I better not see that they're going to start slowly inching towards paid loot boxes or anything resembling glorified gambling again. Now, for those who are disappointed that Visceral Star Wars game is being remolded from its original story-driven linear single-player concept, there's a silver lining in that Titanfall developer Respawn is working on their own third-person action-adventure Star Wars title. Respawn does have a very good track record of high-quality products with the Titanfall series, so perhaps there is cause to be cautiously optimistic. Then again, we did learn recently that Respawn was acquired by EA, and just about every studio that EA touches turns to dust, so there is also some cause for concern. Regardless, we're going to have to accept that EA is hiring for a live service open world Star Wars game, and that this game is almost certainly the one that EA absorbed from Visceral and rebooted following the studio's termination, for better or for worse. That isn't what one might call a great way to start a game's development history, but if EA can make the most out of the situation and show that they learned their lesson from the Battlefront 2 debacle by delivering a fun and consumer-friendly experience, they might just earn some goodwill from the gaming community for once. Time will tell what EA's strategy will be moving forward, but I don't think we'll have to wait that long to find out, as how the publisher handles upcoming titles like Anthem will greatly inform their intentions. Until then though, I'd love to hear what your expectations are of the upcoming online open world Star Wars game in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon. It is completely optional, but donating even as little as $1 a month will go a long way in helping this channel grow. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out!